Hi everyone, welcome to our exclusive Hootsuite Solution Partner webinar on 5 steps to safe and effective social media messaging. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm Rasil Sami and I'm a partner manager here at Hootsuite. I'm thrilled to have the chance to work closely with our partners to put on these monthly webinars. Our partners are thought leaders in social and we want to leverage your knowledge and share best practices to help you be more successful at growing your clients' social businesses. Today's webinar will feature Josh Oakes, founder of Media Leaders. Josh has been a partner since January 2013. He's worked with over 36 leading brands, including Neutrogena, Palms Casino, and Disney, to provide marketing training and management services. He's a regular speaker at marketing conferences around the US and has also published a best-selling book, Light, Bright, and Polite, which shares tips with businesses of all types. Josh will give us a quick 20-minute presentation of tactical tips his agency uses for their clients. And then after that, we'll go into a quick Q&A session. So if you have any questions during his presentation, please type them into the right-hand Q&A chat box. All right, over to you, Josh.
Hey, well, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for the introduction. I'm honored to get the chance to work with Hootsuite. As mentioned, I wrote a best-selling book called Light, Bright, and Polite. We'll talk about that later. And I've gotten the chance to travel around the country to share these tactical tips with agencies of all sizes and brands. And I'm going to give you some tactical tips today that hopefully you can begin using immediately and see what we do with brands. First of all, Josh, what are we going to cover? Well, that's a great question. Our agenda today, well, first we're going to start with a formula for effective messaging, effectiveness first. Next, we're going to apply that formula to an engagement calendar. And I'll give you a few tactical tips, counterintuitive tips that we use there. Then we're going to show you how to review the content with a small team. Then we're going to look at some Hootsuite best practices on how we use Hootsuite. And then a safety formula, one of my favorites. And then we're going to open it up for some Q&A so you can dive in and ask me some questions. So let's jump into it first. Client messaging formula part 1. To be effective, we're going to need to meet your business objectives or that of your client's business objectives. What do you mean by that, Josh? Well, good question. Instead of asking what is our social media strategy for this client or for this business or for your brand, a lot of people are asking that. I want you to instead ask this. Ask your team, what is our goal online? What is our goal? And then I'm going to show you how to ask why, 3 different times to really dive deep into that so you can get to the question behind the question. Well, if you were to ask a client, what's your goal? Well, the goal is to get the word out about our brand. That's why we're using social media. Okay, cool. Well, why? Well, Josh, because we want people to recognize our store when they walk by. Okay, cool. Why? Well, we want them to walk into our store and try on our new fashion styles. Okay, why? Well, they'll fall in love with the outfit perhaps in our retail store, take it to the register, and become a customer. Okay, so your goal is to sell products. So your social media strategy will be how you get there using online tools like Hootsuite or any other social network. So I want you in essence, instead of asking what's your social media strategy first, ask the client or your team, what is our goal? Once you find that end goal, there's your social media strategies, how you get to that goal. All right, next, to be effective, we need to develop customer interest. And this is a really fun one. I want you to consider using this formula for most of your posts. We've used this in a bunch of different industries. First, you start with the image, plus an engaging question, which I'll walk you through exactly what that looks like, plus a call to action, sometimes I call that a CTA, plus a link. Now, first, an image. We've found that square images gather the most interest. That means a square image, I want you to think of Instagram. Instagram square images have the smallest footprint with the most bang for their buck, the most size real estate when they're square. They work mobily, they work on the desktop, they work all over really, really well. So consider using a square image so you have success planned downstream. Next, I want you to use a question. You're going to double your responses when you use a who, what, where, or why question instead of a yes or no. And I want you to ask yourself, can I answer this with a yes or no? Ask yourself the question. If you can, keep refining that to a who, what, where, why question. Next, the CTA, the call to action. Tell people what you want them to do or give them 2 choices for a poll. And I'll show you exact examples of that. Then a link. I always want you to drive traffic back to your site or give the option to drive traffic somewhere so people can learn more. And here's a little trick. You can include 3 out of 4 of these elements for an effective message. You don't have to include all these all the time, and it's not always a place where you want to include them all. So this is a good starting ground for that. And then here's your tactical tips. This is the most fun part of this presentation. More fans will read and respond to a message if it's less than 100 characters in length. Yeah, but Josh, you don't understand. We can put 300 in Facebook, and I've got 140 in Twitter, and when I'm over on LinkedIn, I can put about 400 or 500. Yeah, but the goal of this presentation is to remind you that it's all about the customer. And if you post more than 100 characters, let's say 400 or 500, the customer will then see that. They'll get so overwhelmed, which I'll show you in a moment, that they'll look at it and go, I don't even want to read the first 100 characters. I don't care. And they'll bypass it or they'll save it for later. Guess what? If they save it for later, they'll never come back. So I want you to always try and keep it down to 100 characters in length. Here's an example of less than 100 characters engaging question example. This is a radio station in New York called Hot 97, one of the top 3 radio stations on the East Coast and one of our clients. First, they ask a question, as you can see. What throwback song do you want Real Mr. C to play at noon? Tweet us your requests. Now, they have a who, what, where, why question that they ask. It's all about the consumer, all about the fan. They also tag a DJ in there, Real Mr. C, so that Real Mr. C can retweet it and it goes out to 1 million people or so. And then they also give a call to action. Tweet us your requests, or people can click on that link to join and learn more about it. All right, next. Give us some other examples, Josh. Well, here's another example. Here's a post over 100 characters. Now, I love this brand. I love Del Taco and what they do, and I'm not picking on them in any way. But we're all learning here, and the goal here is that we all improve every day. By no means am I an expert. I am a scientist that's always testing stuff. So let's read this together, this post over 100 characters. If you think you can't get fresh for less, you don't know Del. Try a free Chipotle beef taco from our new, and then basically you've lost me. As a consumer, I only read the first half. And even though it keeps going, it's just too much because consumers have so much going on. Now here's another example of a really kind of a silly brand that you could learn from, that we all learn from. It's called Totally Tween Quotes. Pretty smart the way they ask this question. Can a girl and a boy be best friends? Like for yes, comment for a no. Now, you're thinking to yourself, Josh, you just said don't ask yes or no questions. These people are breaking the rules in a great way. They are saying, if you want to answer with a yes, like, comment, no. They're getting you to respond and engage with this post, which is really smart in the long run for Facebook. Also, notice how I've screen grabbed these on the mobile device because a lot of people are experiencing Facebook mobily. So I want to make sure that you test everything out. So on the left, you've got over 100 characters. On the right, under 100 characters. You tell me which one you think that you'd have more time to read and then quickly respond to as a fan. Now next, here's another example from a client that we've worked with, Neutrogena Skin ID. Here's what the post reads. Would you rather A, have a good hair day, or B, a good skin day? And as you can notice right there, we're asking people basically an engaging question. There's no sales. We just want to ask the consumer to vote below in the comments. Next, here's on Twitter. Would you rather go surfing, skiing, or skydiving? But Josh, this is not in line with the brand at all. Yes, but it actually is in line with the target demo because we want them to feel more comfortable about going outside, having clearer skin, and being more adventurous. And so we're asking them, do you want to go surfing, skiing, or skydiving? Really trying to get them out outside and have a lot more fun. Here's another way to make your graphics work for you. Just a little tactical tip. If you're doing a who, what, where, why question, make sure your graphics are powerful. Now, even though this isn't exactly a square image, you get the idea. Would you rather go to the beach or the mountains, A or B, and have people comment below? Or to take it to the next step, put the word beach or mountains and put an arrow to the comment box. Just a kind of a fun way to get people to respond to your messaging. All right, let me show you a couple more questions on your client messaging formula, how we put this into effect. Now, here's our friends over at Disney. Now, we're not working with Disney on this account, but we really like to highlight what they're doing really well. They're doing a great job. Let's read this one. Mickey is ready for your arrival. When will you be visiting him next? And there's a great inviting picture of Mickey Mouse greeting you at the front door. They're asking a who, what, where, why, when question, which is genius. It's less than 100 characters. Look how they're using a square image. Well done, Disney. Here's another example of their posts. Today is National Hot Dog Day. What's your choice at Disneyland Resort? Hot dog or corn dog? So they're giving a who, what, where, why question, square image, couple options, genius. And then last, would you rather explore the sea with Nemo or confront the abominable snowman in the Matterhorn? You have the Matterhorn and you have Nemo's place right there with the submarines. Square image, less than 100 characters, a who, what, where, why question. It's actually a would, which gets people voting on their favorite and so on. All very well done. All these are posts that we can all learn from and apply to our clients, our agency, or our brand. Now, let's look at the engagement calendar. Josh, how do we develop these? How do we apply that? Let's go apply this messaging formula to this engagement calendar. Now, the goal here isn't that you do this exactly how we do it. It's that you take a couple tactical tips that you can implement tomorrow and start using immediately. So if you toss a few of these out the window, that's okay. But let's see what we can do together. First of all, normally messaging for most brands takes about 30 minutes each morning. When they arrive to the office, they go, okay, what are we going to post today? We advise a lot of brands, if you do this, it's going to take you about 2.5 hours, 30 minutes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when you're in the office. So, and the distraction after that, you have to get out of messaging mode. So it just really takes some time each day to fly by the seat of your pants and plan that. We teach brands, why wouldn't you write out your whole week's messaging, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even a month in one sit down so that it'll take less time. Usually it'll take you about an hour to write your whole week's messaging, whereas it takes 30 minutes to write just that day. Now, we also encourage brands, write out a unique version of the message for each individual social network. They're a lot like London and Los Angeles, these different networks. Sure, they both speak English, but they have a different cultural differences, and sometimes some of the key terms are quite different. So I want to make sure that you're writing things out separately. Josh, what does this look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go look at the next slide, and I'll show you how we break this down. Here's our engagement calendar. This is a copy of it. I want you to look at the far left. I'm going to walk you through each column, and then I'm going to give you a tactical tip right at the end of this. First, on the far left is really where it gets started. The post topic and the dates. That's where we start planning our messaging. I'll show you on the next slide how there are 4 steps to success. I want you to plan out your themes. This is just a regular old Thursday. All of these lines are around Thursday for a client. So you got a safety tip on the upper left, train trivia, fan engagement, and so on. Then you've got the date of the month, which is kind of nice. Then you have the channel, which is the social network. We're sending out 3 tweets, a Google+, a Facebook, and so on. You could add Instagram. We have an emergency in there in case there's an emergency in the transportation industry. We can write it out immediately. And then you have the day of the week. And then you have the social media area, and that's your messaging. And that's really what's key here is messaging is everything in social media. And we'll write out our messaging very carefully, have somebody else review it. Then we have a link area, so we can test all of our links. They auto-hyperlink. The spreadsheet that we're using here is Google Spreadsheets. So it's live, it's shareable, and so on. And then the little secret to our success is right there in the character count, G, where you see the number. It auto counts the characters from the social media area. And if there's anything in the link area, it adds 21 characters so that we know how we have just enough space for Hootsuite to shorten it, and we are still within the 140 characters and so on. And then we have an assets, a photos, and research area. If you're doing some research and you want somebody else to double check your work, you can put an image there, a research photo, and so on. We're just planning for success downstream. Next, is it scheduled? We put that in there as well. Yep, it's in Hootsuite. And then the green area is has it been approved by Josh, Melody, Ashley, and then final review. And then last, client comments. You can move client comments to the far left because they're pretty important. You want to make it easier for them to see, but you get the idea. The client can jump in and add comments, they can edit it, and so on. Now, next, tactical tip. Include a column that automatically counts characters and will alert you if you're over 100 to 140 characters. You're welcome to email my team at josh@medialeaders.com to request the formula. It's in column G right there. Let's move on to the next one. Let's create a content review process. Josh, how does your team do that? Well, good question. I want you always to consider having someone outside of your social media department review your content. Social media isn't just for social media people, and I want you to have them ask themselves, is anything misleading, hard to understand, or perhaps seems too salesy? Now, here's some steps for success for your social media team. Here's some frame of minds that I want you to consider having them do. Now, this might not be right for every brand or every agency, but this works for us more often than not. First of all, the first person that sits down for the client or for your brand or your in-house team, I want them to start writing messaging. They use the far left column that I showed you earlier to plan out holidays, trivia, key dates around the target or customer fan, and use the messaging formula that we've already discovered or discussed, if you will. And they write out messaging, maybe 3 tweets a day, maybe some Facebook messaging, and they really just sit down and write for the whole week. Next, the second person jumps in and they review the messages, and perhaps they add photos to accompany the appropriate posts. You don't need a picture for every post, obviously, but they will review the messages, they'll add photos, they'll maybe adjust some of the messages, and then a third person can jump in and spell check and review. They should ask themselves, are there any spelling errors or perhaps any ways that I can enhance this messaging for more responses? That's where they jump in and make sure that there's always a who, what, where, why question on the questions, and that they're not always able to be answered with a yes or a no. And that's really the third person's job. Now you're thinking, Josh, we've only got 2 people. Well, then person 1 and person 2 can then wear a next hat to jump into step number 3 and so on as you get. And then there's final review. Before the client sees it, have that other person outside of the social media department ask, is there anything missing? Is it misleading? Is it hard to understand or too salesy? Then the client can see it and so on. Here's another tactical tip, and this is why we're all here, my friends. People don't fail, processes do. So if you find that you have a failure or misspelling or something, I want you to work on your process. Because really in social media, it's all about that process so that we can make things work more often than not. And that's what my team does, is helps develop for large agencies and brands that are small and big. How do we develop a process for them so this works every time and so that people can follow the steps? And then tactical tip number 4. This is a really juicy one. It's really fun. Read the messages backwards to let your brain better check for spelling errors. If you look at step 4 right there, the fourth person, as they final review, let's actually read that as if it's a message. Go to the end of the line and you'll see on step 4 on that bullet, we'd read scheduled gets it before and it sees client the before review final. As you read it backwards, it jumbles your brain and your brain doesn't know what to do, so it starts looking at the spelling. And as you read it out loud, it also says, okay, this should be this word, brain, read it. It's a little harder, but I'll tell you what, you'll find some spelling errors. It's just a little tactical, silly trick that my team uses all the time. Okay, let's look at some Hootsuite best practices. We love using Hootsuite. I'm going to show you a normal way to do it and then a counterintuitive way to do it, because that's what I'm all about. First way to schedule. Inside the dashboard, as you're probably already used to, you can use the regular content box to compose a message. It looks a little something like this. You can see my little headshot up there on the left. You can compose your message. I recommend you drag and drop it from your spreadsheet that's already been approved by the client. You can add your link. And then in the bottom right, as you can see, you can auto schedule, which is great. We love doing that. Now, here's a second way to schedule that's kind of fun. While surfing your client's website, or anywhere on the web, you can use the Hootsuite plugin to auto-schedule existing content directly from their site or from fun sites. The Hootsuite is a downloadable little plugin that you can use in Safari or Mac and PC. In pretty much any browser that you use, you can install this extension, and it sits in the upper right. It's quite nice. Now, here's what it looks like when you're traveling around the web or on the client's blog. you click the little Hootlit, it auto pops up a little tiny pop-up window that says, select the social networks you want to send this to. It auto deploys a message or gets it ready for you. 4 steps to create graphics for your startup or small business by media leaders. And it puts the owly in there, it auto shortens it, and you can auto schedule, which is really, really nice. Now, the next tactical tip is as you're running around and auto scheduling these, then you can visit the daily, weekly, and monthly calendar view to get a graphical snapshot of your client's posts or your brand's posts. And I'm going to show you how to move them around easily. This is really cool, and I hope a couple of you will try this technique and adapt it for your own. Josh, what's that look like? Well, let's jump over to that really quick. But first, let's look at tactical tip number 6. I want you to consider picking 5 of your target customers' favorite blogs and going and navigating to them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to curate timely content every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever days work for you for 10 minutes each day. That way it works in your schedule, and I'll show you why we're going to do that. If it turns out you don't want to just sell around your brand, your client's brand, that gets really boring. Nobody wants to hear just about you. But what if you had really good content or tips or fun stuff that you found that's all around the target customer, which means the client's customers or your brand's customers? Go around to the favorite blogs that they actually want to read, find your best stuff, use this Hootlit, auto schedule, and then check this out. This is our next tip. This is what I call the calendar view in Hootsuite. First, you're going to go up to the Publisher tab in the far upper left of Hootsuite that you're probably already familiar with. It's that little tiny airplane, the paper airplane that we love to use. Then you're going to land immediately on this style of page. It shows you different accounts that you have in Hootsuite and their schedule, whether it's at 8:55 a.m., 9:05, and so on. And this is what we call list mode. Look in the upper right up there. You see list mode. This is what's scheduled as a list. But what if you clicked day? And this is where it gets fun. If I click day and go over to the next screen, you'll see that it looks a lot like an Outlook or Google Calendar. Now you see each tweet, each post, each Google Plus scheduled post that will go out, and you see the time that it's scheduled to go out. Pretty awesome, right? Now, the same color means it's the same account. But if we were to click on the week, you'd notice that you have tons of different accounts for different times of the day. Red means one account, brown and green, and so on. The neatest part about this, my friends, and the reason I'm showing this to you is A, I love graphical stuff because I can gut check. Hey, is stuff supposed to be going out at 3 a.m.? Probably not. Let's drag and drop it. Second, as I just mentioned, you can drag each one of these in calendar mode and you can move it to where you want. So if you say, hey, you know what? That's really nice that we're announcing that new feature. Let's drag it over to Thursday and let's put it at 10 a.m. You just drag and drop. You wait 1 second. It auto saves. It's really neat. I hope you'll consider trying to use this. Hit the publisher button on the upper left. Go to day, week, and month mode to really have that other person at the end review in this style. It's a good gut check, and it's a good way to move things around. Especially, here's a little tactical tip, if you have a product launch or a startup launch, this is a great way to see where your tweets are going as you're launching that product. All right, now this is where it gets interesting. I want you to train your team to be safe. We've talked about effectiveness, and that's really great, and I love that. But safety really does come first. Now that we've looked at how to be effective, let's start by keeping everything safe, and I want you to consider telling your team to keep everything light, bright, and polite. Josh, what does that mean? That sounds cute and it rhymes. What does it mean? Well, good question. Let's move into number 1. What does light mean? Light means less than 100 characters. Remember that you need to be concise. Work hard to shorten your message. If it's over 100 characters, your fans, your followers, your customers really won't have time to read it. They're very, very busy, especially if you're a smaller brand and you're trying to win them over. Keep it short. Work extra hard. Next, bright. Bright means valuable and fun. Give the fan or the follower such good content, tips, or helpful information that they'll want to share it with their friends or perhaps click the link and visit your site. And I want you to ask yourself, is this something that I would actually click on? Be honest. If it's not and you're just trying to send it out, then I want you to rework it a little bit to get really interesting and helpful and valuable. That's what bright means. Bright means it's so bright is something that shines on its own without ever having to have people ask, share this with your friends. So it's super good content. And polite means it's billboard ready. That means that you're proud of it when it ends up on a billboard the next day. And you're going to think I'm really boring, but I want you to consider telling your team, hey team, let's avoid politics, religion, personal opinions, blatant selling, or anything that your client's brand won't be proud of the next day on a billboard for everyone to see. Now here's a little tip, and this is also featured in my book, Light, Bright, and Polite: How Businesses and Professionals Can Safely and Effectively Navigate Social Media. Now, let me give you 2 more tactical tips that I think you'll find very fun. First of all, when you're being safe, never count on privacy settings. Instead, conduct all of your online activities in a way that's light, bright, and polite. And I teach this to thousands of teenagers nationwide on the side to teach them how to just be safe in everything that they do online. This works for your clients as well, and I'll tell you what, it'll help you sleep better at night, knowing that you're not worrying about privacy settings accidentally changing and so on. Just make sure everything is okay to be public. And tactical tip number 8, and this is the last one, if you ever pause and have to think about sending a message, well then don't send it. It's probably not the right fit. It's okay to tell your team, if your gut says, should I send this, then just pull back, don't send it, because you know what? Few agencies have ever gotten fired for not sending a message. Now, what did we cover today, Josh? Well, good question. First of all, we looked at a formula for effective messaging. Next, we applied the formula to an engagement calendar. I gave you a couple tips there. Then we showed you our 4-step plan for reviewing the content. Then we looked at some fun Hootsuite best practices on how I use the Hootlet to run around the web and curate timely content. And then I gave you my safety formula: keep it light, bright, and polite at all times. Now I want to open it up for some Q&A and answer any questions you have. Are there any questions that you have up top? I'm going to go look at the doc right now. So it looks like, does any team member schedule posts via the Hootlet, and then who finally reviews in the process? You know, that's a really good question. Typically, the person that's in charge of social media for that brand will run around. And I would say the person that's in charge could add that. But the most important thing would be that you're picking the 5 best blogs that are in line, you're proud of, and they're in line messaging-wise with your brand or your client's brand. Let's go ahead. Can you please share the formula for the calendar count on your Google spreadsheet? Yeah, it's a little bit advanced. I'm delighted to do that. You can email josh@medialeaders.com to do that. It's quite long and lengthy the way it auto-calculates. It's kind of fun. I really would share it if it was 5 characters. But it uses something, we had an Excel expert develop it. And then the next question, go ahead and bold the next question for me if you could, which one you want to answer next. How do you manage situations when something goes wrong on social media? Yeah, that's a really good question. The goal here is safety first, then effectiveness. You know, I got a sailboat license recently from the Coast Guard, and one of the biggest things on a sailboat is first to look at safety. Who can swim? Who's comfortable on the boat, and who gets seasickness? And then next you put it, once you have all the safety parameters, then you put up the sails and you go fast, right? And I think it's the same on social. The reason I showed you how to be super safe here is because we want you safety first so that your blunders are super, super small instead of them being really big. So first I want you to focus here. There's a lot of ways to apologize on social media, or if there's a huge blunder. I don't want to comment on that without having a separate webinar, but I'd say you always want to be transparent and always kind of conduct your online activities in a way that's light, bright, and polite. The more transparent and light, bright, and polite you are, probably the better you can be. And then can you expand on the Hootlet and how you use it to curate content? Absolutely. Once you install the Hootlet, which is a nice little extension, and by the way, you can access it inside of Hootsuite. You can go on the left, and I think it shows the Hootlet in there, and you can install it. It works with Safari, Firefox, and Chrome. I believe it works with just about everything. And as you're going around, I want you to make a list of the 5 best blogs or places for content that work for your target customer. And then I want you to, like, for instance, it could be Mashable. It could be USA Today. It could be anything that's in line with, for us, we run around for our friend. We use our own blog. We go to MediaLeaders.com, and as we blog and shoot videos and help companies and professionals to effectively navigate social media, we'll blog 3 times a week, and we will repost that stuff at the beginning, the middle, and the end on Twitter of the week. And we make sure that we're reposting it because Twitter is such a fleeting medium that we want to make sure people get the opportunity to see it. So I'll run around on the Hootlit on our own blog and repost on Twitter and have a great time doing that every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's kind of nice. And then what are some examples of blogs we use? As I mentioned, it's Hootsuite was really helpful. I'm sorry, our own blog is really helpful. And then you really just need to make a list of what do people that is your target audience read, whether it's Mashable, USA Today, New York Times, LA Times, and so on. Give them stuff that's already happening in their head. Become a part of the conversation that they already have. Well, I want to thank everybody for being on this today. I'm going to move on into the end, the last slide. If you have any feedback or questions, you can email partnersupport@hootsuite.com. You can email me at josh@medialeaders.com and learn more about us at medialeaders.com.